Hello everyone, my name is Melissa Lin and I'm a senior student from Doshisha University. At the beginning of fall semester 2016, I started working on my thesis with the topic of gluten-free foods, are they really worth the price? I wanted to understand the factors that contribute to the high cost of gluten-free foods. For I myself have been purchasing these products for more than a year due to some health reasons, and it has been a burden to me economically. And I'm sure it is the same for others too, especially for those who are diagnosed with celiac disease. I went through some documents, trying to find out the reasons behind the cost, and finally came down to four of them: niche markets, expensive ingredients, risk of cross contamination, acquisition of gluten-free certification. The problem was, even though these reasoning could be found in many documents, almost none of the documents explain them in detail or prove them with data, which made it difficult to understand and to believe. The purpose of this paper, therefore, was to dig deeper to find out the trustworthiness of these reasoning, and further provide detailed explanation if they're correct. I conducted a qualitative research, more specifically speaking, document analysis. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to conduct quantitative research due to geographical and financial reasons, but I have read many documents from organizational reports, survey data, books, to medical journals, and I have put the results into this paper in my own way. So I will just get straight to the point and explain each of the reasoning. First, niche markets. When a product or a service is commonly available to the majority of customers, it is considered mainstream. On the other hand, a niche market is a market that is relatively small compared to the mainstream and is consisted of a small group of people who have similar needs. Doesn't mean that it is less important or less profitable. It just means that the segment is more specific and more well-defined. Although gluten-free market has been growing dramatically over the past 10 years, it is still considered quite niche compared to regular foods because of its low availability. When a market is niche marketing is being used when selling the products. Economically speaking, the demand for gluten-free products tends to be more price inelastic. What this means is that even when there is a change in price, the change in the number of buyers is very little. Because customers are only able to get gluten-free products in certain companies or under specific brands, they are willing to, or have no choice but, to pay a little extra more to purchase these products. And when this happens, companies selling these products can raise the selling price in order to compensate for the smaller quantity sold. Next, expensive ingredients. Let's not forget that gluten is a protein, and it plays an important role when making baked products. First, it acts as a binding agent that binds all the dry and wet ingredients together. Second, it gives texture to the food and make it fluffy. Third, it gives food elasticity and that it's all chewy and yummy. Gluten affects the overall quality of the products. Foods without gluten, however, tend to be flat, dry, and dense. And trust me, I have tasted some really bad tasting gluten-free products that I could not bear to have a second bite. So how do gluten-free companies produce good tasting products without using gluten? They find substitutes. First of all, since all kinds of wheat, barley, and rye contain gluten, they use grains like sorghum, corn, rice, buckwheat, and amaranth, which do not contain gluten. Starches like potato, corn, and tapioca starches are also added to give texture to the products. Last but not least, gums like guar gum and xanthan gum are used as the binding agent. The problem with these substitutes is that they are all more expensive than gluten-containing ingredients. Gluten-free grains are, for example, 3 times more expensive than regular grains. And the gums, believe it or not, are approximately 7 times more than gluten. Sometimes gluten-free products contain more ingredients because they need to achieve the same texture and quality as their wheat-based counterparts, which means higher cost. But even if they don't contain more ingredients, the cost of ingredients itself is a lot higher. than regular ingredients, which contributes to the high cost of gluten-free products. Thirdly, gluten cross-contamination. Gluten cross-contamination happens when a gluten-free product is polluted by gluten during the process of production or preparation. And because for those with celiac disease, even just 50 milligrams of gluten can cause reaction and damage their intestine. By the way, that's 1/100th of a slice of wheat bread. Manufacturers need to prevent gluten cross-contamination from happening by all means. This is actually way more difficult than it sounds. Gluten cross-contamination can happen at any time during the production. Wrong recipe or formulation, incorrect production process, use of equipment that have been in contact with gluten, facilities or machines that have not been sanitized or cleaned up thoroughly, or human error can all lead to gluten cross-contamination. In order to avoid this, companies need to trace and test all the ingredients that are used and batches that are produced, making sure they're free of gluten. Most of the time, they need to have factories that are solely dedicated to producing gluten-free products and must have the facilities clean and sanitized on a regular basis. In the paper, I have an example of all the measurements that are taken by the gluten-free manufacturers in the US, and after seeing that, it is understandable how all the additional procedures, specialized equipment, and extra staffing are adding to the cost of gluten-free products. Last but not least, gluten-free certification. Some companies claim that one of the reasons for the high cost of their product is the number of certifications that needed to be acquired. Even though it is voluntary to get the certifications, a lot of companies spend a lot of money and time to acquire them because it means that the quality and purity of their products are verified and assured. They really are gluten-free and there are no contaminants in the facilities that manufacture them. With a gluten-free certification, not only will customers choose their products over others, which increase sales, but also helps create trust and build brand loyalty with customers. There are several main organizations out there that offer gluten-free certifications. Gluten-free Certification Organization, National Foundation for Celiac Awareness, and Celiac Sprue Association Seal of Recognitions are some of the examples. For most of the certification programs, the process usually includes examining the ingredients in the products, test out the products, and actually go on site to make sure that the manufacturing facilities meet all the strict standards to avoid cross-contaminations. The thing is, each of the organization has its own strict standards that companies must meet, which can be expensive and time-consuming, which explains the high cost of the products because of all these procedures. After examining all these reasoning, I think we all had a better understanding of the price of gluten-free products. One thing that is worth mentioning, though, is that the lack of economies of scale is the biggest reason behind all these high costs. When economies of scale is working, the production becomes more efficient as the number of goods being produced increases, and the unit costs of production are brought down, thus lead to lower prices. The good news is, since the demand for gluten-free products are rising, the price for gluten-free foods have dropped from 242% to 164% for the past couple of years. Still, unless more people are diagnosed with celiac disease, which we do not want that to happen, or more people are seeing the benefit of consuming gluten-free products, the price will continue to stay high. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.